Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI Mondays, and it's time for another region locked car choice. Once again, we are visiting the Euro Masters for season 3. Tonight, we are bringing you round 2 from Misano, 4.22 kilometers in length, 16 turns. I'm your lead commentator for tonight, John Dalton. Alongside me is not Callum Kerwin, it's in fact Jesse Lee, with Stewie behind the cameras, and of course, next door to us, as always, the live stewards. Welcome, everyone.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome in to John Dalton. It's great to be here on a Monday. You've been such a help to me on Fridays this year so far that it is only right that I pay it forward and come out to see what's been going on Mondays. And what has been going on Mondays is the third season of the Euro Masters Championship. Drivers can't get enough of this series.
Yeah, certainly a sucker for punishment on this one. Good sign-ups, as always, with 35 drivers making it into Split 1. And, of course, some very regular names, as always, here tonight for the Season 3 title contention. We've got Chris Downing of the Volpes SimSport, not in the Mercedes AMG, as you'd expect, this time out in the BMW M4. We have Venti Rachinov, British Masters and Super Trofeo Cup champion. Tom Shipston from the British Masters Silver champion. Andy Boardman regular and RCI and Asia Master Silver champion. Dudor Budu Super Trofeo AM champion, and some new faces up and down the list to join us on Mondays. And last time out, of course, we saw Jean Alesi driver Joshua Allen stick the Ferrari on pole, followed closely by a charging Hugo Colot and another strong Audi in Rafael Malho. But unfortunately, Joshua Allen getting involved in some drama, went backwards very fast and has since signed out of the championship. Hugo Colot drove away from the field, winning round 1 with Rafael Malho coming in second, and Andy Boardman with the big gainer, 7 positions from his qualifying result, taking third overall. Of course, we'll bring you more on the championship later on this broadcast. But practice looking Audi very strong again, Jesse. Some Porsches in the top mix. Obviously, every manufacturer has its unique quirks. Pedro Marquez, the only Lamborghini, I believe, still in the field tonight. First out of the pit lane, a very long drag down to pit exit, but it is a very competitive season already, and round 1 proved just that.
It sure will, and it's not going to get any more spread apart today. This is Misano, of course, designed as a MotoGP racing course, now loved by GT racers as well. We love it here at RCI. Why is that? It is the great equalizer. Not a lot of drivers do any particular extra testing here than when they have to on the week of a race. It's not so much of an unknown. We've had it for a very long time, ACC. It's just that it equalizes everything. If you've got a car that's good in a straight line, there's a dog leg for that. If it does best in the tight, twisty bits, you've got Sector 1 for that. If you like the nice, longer turns, Sector 2 might be the place for you. And you can see cars like the Lamborghini do very well here.
Yeah, it's certainly a good kind of mid-engined platform circuit, the Audi R8, of course, dominating practice. Drivers weaving along the back straight down to turn 11, try and generate as much heat into the Pirellis as they can. Relatively cool this morning at Misano with a 17-degree air, a 17-degree track, so Pirellis should be loving these conditions. And Pedro Marquez for the PMMS, the 182, is the first driver to lead the train around. We see a Mercedes, well, I think actually BMW of Chris Downing behind in second as we round out the last turn, turn 16. We jump on board with Pedro Marquez, and as you said in the intro, Jesse, curbs very, very flat at Misano means you can very much abuse them, and we're going to be seeing a lot of that from the drivers. Be careful on the anti-cuts, though, on the inside, as they can really upset the car. Very kind of fast entry into turn 1 and slow it right down for turn 2 before powering out of turn 3 for a short drag down to turn 4. Now, 2 very tricky corners. Tight right-handers, good pass in place if you can get a run on your opponent around here. Curbs on the inside, as we said, very flat. Be careful of the anti-cuts on the exit here, as they can really upset the car and ruin your run all the way down through turn 7, which is this kind of kink in the straight, and towards turn 8. Again, all the track limits being used on the outside, the green and the red and white stripe, and some more. Use the camber of turn 8 to suck the car around, trying to maximize as much as you can on the exit before charging towards turn 9. Hard on the brakes for 9 and into 10. This is a crucial corner in your lap to get right, because you've got such a long drag before you get to any kind of braking zone of turn 12, as we now power out of turn 10. towards 11 being the kink in the straight here. Even on the kink, still maximizing all the entry curbs on the left-hand side. And now a quick kind of dab of the brakes, down a few gears. Be very careful not to upset the car. Super easy to do so. A little wiggle of the wheel from Marquez before he now turns around turn 14. Again, a good pass in place if you can get a stupendous run through 13. And now we sweep through 15 anti-cuts on the inside. Be careful of track limits on the exit before charging down to the final corner. More anti-cuts on the inside and the outside here. Be very, very careful indeed, as Pedro Marquez is your first driver to set a benchmark time with a 1:34.342, and Chris Downing not too far off already on his first lap as well.
Everybody coming together, you're going to see that, and that's the thing. Qualifying does not get spread out around this racetrack either. We're going to see a lot of very close times. In fact, Andy Boardman goes P2 for a moment. All of it comes in, and then Jordan Daly goes P1 for a second. Malo takes the pole position provisionally, a 33.875. And that was sort of what I was talking about. And don't worry that it's 4/10 between Malo and Daly. That's not going to last more than a lap or so. This is all going to come together, I reckon, about 20 or so cars within a second by the time we're done here.
Let's see if your mouth is right on that one, Jesse. Let's see how close you can predict the 1 second gap tonight. And Barcelona was certainly very close indeed. We had kind of blocks of manufacturers, as you can kind of see already, forming on the left-hand side of your screen. You've got pairs of BMWs in Calatayud and Spence. You then got kind of a pair of Porsches almost between Voodoo and Phil Malta. And then you've got kind of Les Stevenson and Berner. You've got mixtures of BMWs in and out of the Porsche. So two very equal manufacturers might see tonight. And the R8s, of course, being very strong. Hugo Colot, round one winner, is currently on his flying lap. A BMW M4 ahead, possibly, of Chris Downing. Keep it very tidy through turn 15 before throwing it through 16, being very careful over the anti-cuts on the inside. Smooth exit, runs towards the line. Hugo Colot currently P21 with no time, fires it straight to the top of the board, and a dominant lap there, Jesse. 0.873 clear of Malho's time that we thought was quick on itself.
All right, well, we're not going to have 20 cars all in a line within a second if Colot continues to drive like that. Almost a 33 dead, and that has absolutely stunned the entire racing field. Boardman goes P3, a nice improvement for the number 70 Audi. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves in a situation where we have 3 Audi products at the front of the field, and this car, Polacek in the 15 Porsche, in 4th place. Right now, we only have 2 cars within a second.
That's it, 2 cars within a second. It's a very small margin compared to the 20. Stick an extra 0 on the end, and you might be on the money there, Jesse. But Stewie behind the cameras just brought it to my attention. The track is, of course, at the moment fast. So the more cars that are turning laps, the faster the track will get. So ideally, you want to be crossing the line, Jesse, on your final flyer as late as you can to that clock ticking down, you know, within the final 5 to 10 seconds at least.
Well, of course, Stewie, the man behind the cameras, and also the man who makes us look smart on occasion as well. As hard of a task that is to do, Stewie sometimes pulls that off. Carlos Caladiad in the Turner Motorsports livery car, one of the most beautiful BMWs of all time. Turner Motorsports turns out some lookers as far as car liveries go. Down in 22nd place, likely long to stay there. Just love it, the Liquimoli livery on this car, but the traditional blue and yellow car or that they typically run inside North America, also a brilliant car. Carlos has either invalidated his lap, something not to his liking. He has reset. 8 minutes of qualifying left, more than enough time to come down the pit lane and do final adjustments.
Yeah, of course, tonight's qualifying being a typical 15-minute session that we're used to seeing in a lot of our events. And of course, a lot of drivers do choose to run 2 stints. So they kind of, you know, run the first half of the race on one set, first half of the qualifying, sorry, on one set of the Pirellis, maybe a little dribble of fuel just to get them to the kind of 7-minute mark. And then they come in, take another kind of half tank of fuel, just a bit under, and then, of course, attack another kind of stint, if you like, break it down into 2 mini stints. Some drivers, such as myself, we choose to fuel the car for the whole session and run around on one set of Pirellis, because we do know in ACC the Pirellis do kind of reach their peak after a few laps Typically, the first couple are obviously pressures building, temperatures building, and then all of a sudden you'll get that kind of burst of lap time over 3 or 4 laps, and that's when they're really in their magical window. Chris Downing, Volpa Simsport, currently down in P8. Usually a driver we see much higher up than this. He's got Will Stevenson to clear, at least on that one. Will showing some great pace already early on. Chris Downing, a small improvement there to P7 on that one, as we see a few more cars behind coming across the line. No real movers and shakers at the top of the field, but we've got 2 Audis, a Porsche, and that sole Lamborghini. Then we've got 3 manufacturers in the top 4 at least. And of course, the BMW, the highest one at the moment, being Chris Downing in P7. So maybe the BMW not looking like a good choice here, Jesse.
Might not be, but you never know. This is qualifying. It might race a little bit better than it qualifies. Some cars around here, they come alive in a race where you get some tire wear, and also you race around other cars. They say race better than they qualify. We'll see if today is one of those days. I will say it is going to take some doing to beat the Audis today. See if anybody can do that. Qualifying enters the final stage. John, this is the point in quali where everybody gets a little nervous. If you haven't set the lap, and I don't think most of the field has set the lap that they've been trying to set, get a little bit nervous right now because you know your opportunities are starting to dwindle. You're only going to get 1 or 2 more shots at it. Pressure mounts, tension goes up, the stakes start to multiply.
Yeah, that's it. Pressure is, one of those things some drivers deal with greatly. Some drivers don't deal with it so much, as well. I know me, for one, under pressure, not exactly good. Qualifying is always a session I typically struggle in to find that kind of one magical lap pace. Obviously, qualifying, that's all you really need, that one magical lap, just to string it together in a good manner and obviously fire yourself up the top of the board. Andrei Pozniakov here, one of our kind of good qualifiers from Barcelona, although a few early on incidents and a few stewards penalties, of course, set him back down the field along with Joshua Allen. So driver I'd be keeping my eye on tonight, Jesse, yet to set a qualifying time, currently down in P27, just ahead of Cassiaro, who again has yet to set a time, but Porsche's not looking all too strong. We've got Joe Dorber in P11. We've, of course, got the other Barlas Esports car up in the top end of the field as well. So they're sharing setups and tips. Then, of course, they're going to be on a very similar pace. And Nico Kumpu ahead there, I believe, in the Ferrari. Currently resides in P8 ahead. Hopefully, Pozniakov isn't going to get too affected by this and gets a good old flash of the lights into Nico Kumpu's rear end. And he does improve much better into P4. Not too far behind his teammate Jesse, so we could see 2 teammates working together to see if they can progress themselves past the 2 Audis at the front, who of course are fighting for separate teams. Hugo Collot, of course, for the race esports team, and Malho for a separate entity entirely. So of course, everything to be played for tonight, and we know, Jesse, how strong those Porsches are off the line. They are quite quick.
We sure do. And just a shout out to the Ballas Esports team, one of the longest running teams that seem to turn up for every championship. They have at least one car. They've got multiple cars here, and to their credit today, they've got multiple cars inside the top 5. Love to see those liveries. Love to see those drivers out on the racetrack lighting up the top 5 thus far. Will Stevenson, who I was just going to say was inside the top 10. He was as high as 6. He's now down to 8th, and is going to make another attempt in that 108 Mercedes. Just left pit lane. He will get at least one timed lap after this, putting in quite quick laps. Nobody in the realm of the top 2 cars. Everybody else, though, fighting each other for position. It's a 32.737 up at the top for Collad. Malo in 2nd place, 6/10 off of that pace, and then it gets close. The Ballas cars 3rd and 4th, Marquez, or Marks if you prefer, 182 in 5th place, and it's an absolute log jam. Everybody else.
Yeah, everybody else is kind of super close, as you said, Jesse. You got Kola on the front, obviously streaking away from Malho, who's streaking away a little bit from Polovchok and Pozniakov there, the 2 Ukrainian drivers for the Ballas Esports team. And everybody else below them is relatively close. So, I mean, we've got technically 20 cars nearly within a second of each other, as Andy Boardman improves greatly up into P3. So we've got an Audi 1, 2, 3, followed by a Porsche 4 and 5, and then the sole Lamborghini still clawing on in P6. Joe Dorber on this one in the 777 car. comes across the line to improve slightly to a P9, so just inside the top 10. Will Stevenson, of course, being shuffled down every single lap by somebody else. So hopefully Will has got some pace in that lap somewhere. And Rafael Malho now, we ride on board the splitter cam for the Team STR car. I believe we've got a bit of traffic up ahead who's moved to the side. I want to say that's Hauser, possibly, if memory serves me correct, on the yellow BMW livery, as he now runs towards turn 11, over to turn 12. Of course, very fast sector of the circuit. Be very careful on 13. It's so easy to throw the lap away here. Too much inside curb, too much outside curb, and maybe too much brake and too much steering can also be deathly. We see one of the barless cars there stopped on the exit, the hairpin, trying to find maybe some clean air to take another stab at another lap. We see Malho coming around the last corner, looking towards his lap so far. Looks like a small improvement to be had in the first couple of sectors. Can he keep it together as he runs to the line? He does improve, but not enough to knock Kolot off the top, although he does gap himself from Andy Boardman. So Andy Boardman's going to have to find even more time now if he wants to grab a slot on that front row, with just under a minute to go now, Jesse.
Sure is. Talked about the tension. Well, now it's palpable for everybody. This is your last shot. It's not the last shot for Carlos Caladian, who will get one more lap. Anybody who is on an active lap when the timer strikes 0 gets to finish that lap, even if they cross the line with 1 second left to go. Basically getting a free lap. Bodu in the 627, the Medina Motorsports car, looking to improve, get inside that top 20. Will they do it in that Porsche? I think they might have a good shot at it here. Needs to jump just about a tenth or so, and does more than that. It's a 34 for them, good enough to get them in the top 20 for the time being. Back up near the front, the number 15 Porsche, and that's Polachuk trying to get another row, maybe? Actually, maybe he just swap rows as Andy Boardman jumped him a moment ago. He's up a few tenths here, John.
Yeah, certainly looking good in the opening half of the lap as the clock obviously ticks 0. So this will be the last attempt for anybody currently on a hot lap. The 272 looking like he's going to be the first to cross the line. The 182 on the bottom right-hand side of your map is going to be the last one on a fast lap, as we see cars now beginning to stop. Anybody, of course, in blue is not on a valid lap. Anybody in grey is, as we now round through the last corner. The Barlas Esports team, car number 15, Porsche runs to the line, direct line out of the corner, doesn't even go over to the pit wall, and he does improve up into P3, shuffles Boardman down into P4, but Boardman, I believe, still on a lap, as Pedro Marquez now looking fairly good, Jesse, through the first couple of sectors. Possibly a little bit more time to find in that Lamborghini, and it's a bit of an odd pick. We don't see many Lamborghinis, even when we open the realms to every single car. Nobody really picks it, and it's a little bit of a dark horse at some circuits. It's definitely a very capable car, as Les Stevenson now seeks improvement in the number 46 Porsche. Comes to the line, small improvement indeed, jumps ahead of his teammate and friend, I believe, Rudy Filmalter. Usually those two teaming up together in most events we do see here at RCI, of course. On that one, Pedro Marquez through the last sector he comes. I believe this is turn 14. A lot of inside curb there. Not sure if that was valid looking to the time. It still is, although hemorrhaged a lot of time in the last 2 sectors. Not looking like there is going to be a much improvement for Pedro Marquez. One of the last cars on a flying lap comes out of the last corner. Big snake towards the pit wall and realizes no improvement to be had, Jesse. And that rounds out our qualifying for tonight.
Qualifying over. Really no surprise. As far as the top of the sheet goes, Kalat, quickest of all, setting purple in every sector. And folks, when I tell you that is rare, I mean it. That is absolutely rare. Purple in all sectors, the quickest car by far, 32.737. Good enough for pole position. Mahler gave them a run for their money. They'll start opposite pole on the same row, 3.5 tenths off of the pole time. Behind them, though, gets a bit closer. Team Ballas, Polashuk there in 3rd place. Swap spots with Boardman, who had a nice qualifying. We have the 5th place car in the Porsche. That's where it gets very tight indeed. 1 second is the gap to the leader, but go 1 second from them. You've got to go all the way down outside the top 20.
So you nearly got your prediction there, Jesse. 20 cars within a second. It's not far off, but of course, it's not the traditional like we see P1 to P20 being your kind of 1 second gap. And as we roll into the race, we're of course going to take a look at your round one results and proceedings to see where all your favorite drivers are in the board of table of contents. So Hugo Collot heads up the board with 68. Rafael Malho just behind him on 58. Andy Boardman, big improvement, 7 positions in round one from his qualifying, takes 53 points. Chris Downing on 48. Tom Shipston, 44. Joe Dorber on 40. Nico Kumpu, 37. Martin Lindrup on 34, Tudor Budu on 31, and Ventsy Rashinov took 28 points. Now rounding on to page 2, our very own RCI kind of grid of drivers, should we say. Will Stevenson on 25, followed by Carlos Calateud with 23. Pozniakov 21, certainly looking to improve on that one today. Matthew Kingston-Lee, regular here at RCI as always, on 19. Gordon Daly on 17, Pedro Marquez on 15, Donna Racer on 14, Jelle Verstraeten on 13, Simone Alessandro Cassiaro on 12, and Dan Edvardson, despite strong qualifying, on 11. No Danish drivers here tonight, unfortunately. As we now round on to page 3, Roskam, another RCI regular, on 10, Hubert Hauser on 9, Richard Withel on 8, Matt Stevens, very own RPMS SimSport car, on 7. Charlie Spence on 6, another driver who qualified very well but kind of went backwards on race 1. And Les Stevenson took home the last of the points from Barcelona, leaving Rudy Filmalter, Pavel Gadger, Stefan Berner, Andre Dixon-Chen, who I believe is a new sign-up possibly for tonight because he didn't attend round 1, all score 0. And rounding on to the final page, of course, Povlochok on 0, Coriette on 0, Michael Bosch, Joshua Allen, and Matthias Thornberg with the dash have all signed out of the championship, so shall be competing for no more points. And believe, Jesse Lee, we have somebody just walked in to the comms box with us, a man that should have been here kind of half an hour ago, but it's fashionably, it's of course our very own RCI regular on Mondays, Callum Kerwin. Welcome to the box. It's a bit squashed in here tonight.
Apologies, boys. Apologies. Had something come up a bit last minute to do with some racing, but unfortunately, back now, finally, on Mondays, in time for an hour of Misano. Yeah, sorry about that, John. What have I missed?
You have missed an absolutely wonderful qualifying from Hugo Collot, setting the pace very early on, remaining quite untouched. Malho, the next driver on the right-hand side of your screen, of course, the nearest driver to come close. We have an extra Barless Esports car tonight as well, so you're not seeing double Callum. That is, of course, another person competing alongside Pozniakov as Jesse Lee steps out of the box and leaves me and Callum some more space in here. As we now do the grid walk, of course, Callum, you're going to kind of look to the cars and realise who's qualified where, have a little bit of a catch-up yourself. But, of course, tonight, the vehicles of choice, as the name suggests, of course, limits drivers to European manufacturers only, with the latest choice of GT3 machinery, including, of course, the Audi R8, the R8 LMS Evo 2, the BMW M4 GT3, BMW M6, which I'm surprised nobody has picked as a bit of a different choice, the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, the Lamborghini Huracan Evo, the Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo, and, of course, the Porsche 911R. And, of course, with new machinery on the horizon, we, of course, have a new iteration of the Porsche coming this year. There's already a new Ferrari debuted at IMSA, along with the Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2. And, yeah, exciting things to come. Wonder if the drivers will be allowed a free upgrade if Kunos decide to release in time. Has been all quiet on the Kunos front. However, I have heard rumours there might be a roadmap on the horizon for some content.
Woohoo, a roadmap. No,
back to the roadmap days.
Hopefully they'll release something halfway through, so some of these drivers get a boost. I know in our upcoming 6-hour series, I believe some of the drivers have specifically picked cars in order to have that mid-season release of hopefully a boost. I think it's a couple of them in the Ferraris, hoping the 296 is getting released halfway through that upcoming series, which, as you've mentioned to me on our text messages before this, the live stream starts this weekend. So looking forward to that. Obviously, Collot back on pole position with a car with a livery this time. So Stewie cannot go mad about seeing a black car circling around the front of the track for the entirety of the race. But a very nice striking white, grey and blue livery with, I believe is that Race RCI on the side as well? Especially
No,
the
it
call up there as he's.
says Race Sim Sport, I believe,
Oh,
on that
oh,
one.
I thought we had
But
some free advertising.
if only. I know some cars in the field tonight are sporting RCI stickers in various places. I know a few of our staff members decide to don the logo. It is the Racing Club International. And as you mentioned, Callum, of course, this weekend, the big one for us here at RCI, the 6-hour Challenge Esports Series kicks off, of course, on Saturday with the free event taking place, where, of course, there is no entry fee or prize pool attached to this one. Just classic community racing delivered to you, as it always has been from RCI. And the series will also mimic the limited tyre sets from the Esports Series. However, BOP will be as set by Kunos. And of course, Sunday, the paid esports leg of the 6-hour challenge kicks off. 49 teams were separated by less than 0.453 seconds in qualifying, half a second just under. 5 rounds with 49 teams, limited tyre sets, a custom BOP, and a forecasted 5-figure €11,000 prize pool. The series aims to showcase the absolute best of what sim racing has to offer on Assetto Corsa Competizione, with SMP Racing taking honours with the fastest pre-qualifying stints, followed by the likes of William Esports Chillblast, Malinowski and Boothby, and those to qualify included Yas Heat, another Williams Esports car, ITB Esports, FFS Racing, Legion of Racers, Azatec Fiscal Esports, Renvelton, Race Anywhere Simsport, the Jean Lacey Academy Esports cars, West Competition Racing, Clamor Racing Esports, Connection Lost Racing, Armamentario, Nearly On Pace, Veloce, and Lipert Esports. So some super big names taking to the circuit on Sunday. And I, for one, cannot wait to see what that has to offer. You can, of course, catch us on Sunday on RCI TV for that one. But our attention will turn to tonight at Misano, as the cars now lead 2 by 2 down the start-finish straight. Just under an hour to go as the green flag drops. Great run from Hugo Collot on the left side of your screen. Malho tries to mount an attack around the outside, which will, of course, become the inside when they get to turn 2, although both drivers surviving. Couple of single files towards the front. Looks like one of the Barless Esports cars already having a crack at Andy Boardman. We got a couple of cars off in the back. Not too sure who they were. Sure to be found out in a bit when they race down towards turn 4 and 5. Typical pinch point, very slow corner. Got to make sure you check up. Got to make sure your opponent ahead of you doesn't brake too early and you brake too late. Into the back you may go, as cars look like, nope, commentator's curse. I was about to say they look like they've survived Sector 1, as we see, I think, Pedro Marquez in the wall, not sure followed by who, as they come out of turn 6 now, running down into turn 8. Looks all relatively clean. I believe I'm probably going to curse that again, as we see 3-4 wide in the background there, as we now run up to turn 9 and 10. I believe Carlos Calatayud in one of the white M4s towards the kind of middle of your picture, just going into the hairpin now. And I think so far, Callum, it's been a little few dramas up and down the field, but everybody has kind of found a little bit of space as we see the last kind of stragglers coming out onto the back straight.
Yeah, a couple of skirmishes that I believe, just looking at the track map there, it was involved in the first incident. It was, as I've just lost the name, it was Thibaut Roskam involved in the first incident on the first corner, and I know, I believe it was Will Stevenson, one of the RCI cars, involved in the second incident down the main straight, as I'm probably bound to be corrected here by a race replay as we look as they come through. Yeah, it looks like Will Stevens, or one of those Mercedes, turns Pedro Marquez there, so good spot from you, John, to see the Lamborghini off, as multiple cars in pit lane on the first lap here. So are they deciding to get the first stop out of the way early? Obviously, pit window is open for the hour-long race, just a litre of fuel required, maybe some guys fixing damage as well.
Yeah, indeed, pit lane open very early. Of course, a very wide pit window we run here on Monday evening. So a few of the drivers choosing to take their stops now, maybe to kind of desync themselves from the field, find a little bit of clean air, drill in the laps for about, normally about 30, 40 minutes before the rest of the field start coming in, maybe fixing some damage from the earlier lap skirmishes. Pedro Marquez probably going to be one of those drivers to do so. Chris Downing, I believe, in the 23 is your first driver on the road now from the pit lane, so all eyes on him. But now Malho comes under pressure from Polovchok in the number 15 Barlas Esports Porsche. We know the Porsche typically not so good in the straight line, The Audi R8 Evo is very good in a straight line, but coupled with that slipstream, of course, going to be no issue for the Porsche. And we see what the dirty air does. It allows Andy Boardman to close up the gap between himself and the Barless Esports car side by side. They come out of turn 14 into 15, still side by side. All of the anti-cut curb taken by the Porsche on the inside. And look at the gap that Malho has pulled out just by having that kind of one rival up your inside. It desyncs you from the corner and it makes you go, you know, side by side, and you just keep losing ground again and again as Carlos Calatayud comes around. I believe this is turn 5, I want to say. Nope, not to hairpin at the end of me and told him he is, so not sure what we were watching there, but a little move to be had on himself and a racer ahead in the black and red 699 M4. Of course, Calatayud in the Turner white M4 car behind, and we then cam ourselves forward to Gajda, who is currently in P8, hunting down the back of the Porsche of Joe Dorber. It seems like everybody at the front of the kind of top 10 has found a little bit of space to work with, and we're going to see who the bigger movers and the shakers are, hopefully in the next couple of minutes, Alan.
Yeah, just having a quick look down, noted down some of the drivers that have pitted under that first lap. Obviously, as you noted, Chris Downing first off the pit lane. Les Stevenson also pitted under that. Stefan Berner, Hubert Hauser, Pedro Marquez, obviously, and Will Stevenson, as well as car 54, I believe it was, if we have, which was Simeone Alessandro Casario, as we, I believe, was pronouncing his name, Cascario. I can't speak Italian.
I'm going with Casario.
Casario. I've got an interview with an Italian race team and I can't speak any Italian. That's fantastic. We look at a race replay from the start. I believe this is going to be the instant. Yeah. So a bit of a brake check and a punt from one of the Beamers involving, I believe that was, who did I say initially? But it was punted off at the first corner.
Roscam, I believe, in the
Roscam
yellow and grey.
Roscam in the yellow and grey, yeah. Still getting used to everybody's liveries changing from them being all in Lamborghinis, as we see Palovchuk for Team Ballas Esports, one of, as you say, their 2 cars running in 3rd place, trying to hunt down Marlowe. Again, Carlot, 1.9 seconds already up the road. So pulling out on these guys, John.
Yeah, it just proves what battling with, you know, rivals can do. It's, you know, Kolot's got the great jump from Malho on the initial opening, kept his nose clean, and he's just got nothing but clear air ahead of him as the next car is, of course, just going down the back straight. You see on the track map on the right-hand side, of course, your leader is just at the bottom, kind of at about, you know, 6 o'clock-ish. It is a clock face, 6 or 7 o'clock. And Tudor Budu pulling away massively from Rudy Filmalter down the straight. Rudy coming under pressure from what I believe is Richard Whittle in the background there. Of course, like you say, Callum, everybody's livery changing from obviously everybody being in a Lamborghini to now a whole new load of liveries to learn. And this is the fight at the front. The Ballas Esports car very, very close again down the back straight. The Audi R8 proving to be a great machine to tuck into the draft of. It really gives the Porsche that leg that it needs to get all the way up behind it. I'm not sure if we picked up some contact here, maybe a little bit of bump drafting. And sorry, Stewie in my ear is saying there was a little bit of contact. So these guys are bump drafting down the dog leg of the back straight, and Pavlychuk has decided to call it there, and he's going to make an early stop with 53.5 minutes still on the clock. Track has now reached optimum, but notably, Callum, the temperatures here today are very cool indeed. 17 air and a 17-degree track, so we're probably not going to see anyone, I would say, taking tires, just purely dropping in the kind of mandatory fuel that is needed, and on their way they go again just to clear off that stop. So it's going to be about raw pace today, and who can extract that pace from these Pirellis and keep them alive the longest without overworking them.
Yeah, interesting. Seeing such early stops obviously does indicate, as you say, people aren't thinking about taking tyres tonight, and with such low track temps, I wouldn't be either. But yeah, interesting that he's decided to pit there. Maybe he thinks he has a bit more pace, trying to do some form of undercut, maybe. I don't know how well that's going to work on this track in this game, but we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. But with him pitting now, that's going to put him down potentially in some traffic. We might have to see where he comes out from his mandatory stop, as he's just exiting pit lane now. With a couple of cars going past, but with some nice, potentially a bit of clear air once he's let go of the pit limiter here. Some cars going through turn 3 as he's coming out now. Maybe he can dispatch of those guys quite quickly. I had a super long stop according to Stewie, so maybe not hitting the pit stop marker right. Maybe going too long, too deep, or too far side to side. No, that can delay you in a pit stop on ACC, or some struggles with cutting out the engine and restarting it again. We'll have to wait and see, but that's not going to help him trying to undercut Marlow as we cut to a view of Gadger trying to attack Joe Dorber down the straight. That Porsche really struggling in the straight lines, having to be helped along with slipstream here, but Joe Dorber hasn't got any in front of him now, as we are briefly joined in the booth there for a second. But Gadger going through turn 3 down into the double right-handers of turn 4 and 5. Just going to see if he decides to stick underneath here, coming out of turn 6, trying to get a run down the straight. It's a really good passing point down into the long left-hander of turn 8, but gets a poor run really compared to the Porsche in front of him. So going to be no threat ahead for him now. A bit of breathing room for Dorber there, John.
Yeah, so you got to remember the Porsche, of course, with the rear engine kind of layout, does get superb traction coming out of the corners, and of course the BMW having the, the late bop that it had that kind of shoved it into the floor for a lot of drivers. Of course, with the added weight, makes it a little less nimble than the Porsche. And speaking of Porsches, we see in the background Pavlychuk getting very close to the back of Hauser's BMW, trying to find a way past him, as Rudy Philmalter stuck in a little bit of a Porsche sandwich at the moment. He's got Boudou ahead, Spence behind, and then another Porsche just behind him. I think as the timing boards update, it's of course Boudou ahead of him, sorry, with Whittle behind him on that one. Not too sure what board I was reading off, but thank you, Stewie, on that one. We got a little bit of a train of cars forming. We saw this last time at Barcelona, Callum. We saw a lot of people, we had that typical cork in the bottle scenario where one driver was kind of holding up another driver just enough to keep them ahead of themselves, and then all of a sudden you start seeing a kind of rain of cars forming behind. And of course at the head of this field, I believe, looking at the times, it's probably going to be Carlos Calatayud with a stream of cars behind him. But Gadger now looking ever so closer to the back of Joe Dorber's Porsche, and we're going to see, can Gadger make it work out of the slow sector? We saw last time the Porsche absolutely gapping him down the straight towards turn 7, the kink of the straight, and of course 8. And I think it's happened once again here as we see Dorber with a great run, with a Gadger slightly tidier this time. Doesn't look like he's pulled out as much of a lead as he'd hoped into turn 8. Of course, you need to get the car tucked into the inside of turn 8. It's cambered on the inside, drags the car around as we now watch on board from the back of Joe Dorber's 777 car, as Gadger looks ever closer on the brakes. The BMW very strong on the brakes. It's a very hard car when you're driving it hard to kind of upset it and almost, throw it into a mistake yourself, whereas the Porsche, we know, can have that pendulum effect, Callum, that is ever so detrimental, especially at high speeds like we see here in Misano. As Gadger, great run up the inside. I think Dorber kind of lifted a bit and said, you know what, you have it. I'm not going side by side through this section.
Yeah, Dorber was definitely letting him have it there. He did not want to go side by side through the kink, and I don't see anything wrong with that as we look back at this battle with Philmalter and Whittle, as we cut to the splitter cam of Whittle looking at that purple and green Porsche of Philmalter, sorry, coming through the last couple of corners. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, especially as we go from circuit to circuit, seeing the differences between these cars, the strengths and weaknesses. You're going to have these Porsches always struggling in a straight line without their slipstreams, but is there enough room on this circuit to have the BMWs and those faster cars in the straight line, the Audis, past them? I think the Porsche might be a decent choice for this track, John.
Yeah, you've got a lot of slow corners typically at Misano. First sector being relatively slow, these two 90-degree right-handers. Of course, turn 2 as you come out into 3, just behind where we passed. Of course, a very good corner for the Porsches to get some traction off. Turn 8, again, maximize the exit as much as you can to 9 and 10. 10, you want to try and get the power down as soon as you can. You see just towards the end of the straight, the Porsche just running out of puff as Whittle looks to the inside. Philmalter around the outside on a good defense there, kind of chops the nose of Whittle as he gets to the apex and says, not today, you're not coming through. And the battle will rage on as we head up to 9 and 10 now, jumping back onto the splitter cam. Whittle trying to get that wider line to try and equal the Porsche's drive out of the corner, but just see, Callum, the Porsche picks up so well with the naturally aspirated engine over the rear axle compared to the BMW turbocharged lump that of course takes a little while to get going, but once it does certainly pick itself towards the back of the Porsche again, and we kind of have this giant game of cat and mouse forming where We have the BMW strong in certain sectors, the Porsche strong in others, and they just kind of balance themselves out just enough to keep it fairly equal as Jordan Daly now comes down pit lane in the Just Gamers car, the 197 Mercedes AMG with the green accents. Great choice of colours, if I do say so myself. He does have a drive-through penalty to serve, Callum. And as we look towards the stewards, we see Jake Boswell has popped in the first couple of notes. We have a lap 1 turn 6 incident involving the 182 and the 197 of this man here, Jordan Daly. The 197 takes out the 182, position not returned, and I think this is what we're going to see here. We see Marquez on the outside, gets a bit of a poor run. The long snout of the Mercedes just bumps him off to the driver's left, and of course Daly keeps the throttle down, doesn't lift at all. Of course, it's very dangerous to kind of lift in the opening kind of pack, essentially, as it can catch out a few drivers who aren't quite expecting a slow Mercedes offline that early on in the race. And then we go to an incident on lap 1 turn 6 involving the 182 and the 197. We have a warning for the 182. I believe that is Marquez for a dangerous rejoin. Not sure what happened on that one, but obviously enough for the stewards to kind of look into after the incident had occurred. We then have lastly an incident on lap 1 turn 2 involving the 79, the 54 and the 96. We have a drive-through for the 79. Takeout 79 fails to react to cars slowing ahead, so possibly the 54 and the 96 getting involved in a little tangle, and the 79 just not paying enough attention, being made aware of what was going on ahead of him, but a penalty nonetheless. And then we have an incident on lap 1 turn 6 involving the 108 and the 256 racing incident. 256 oversteers, which causes them to hit the 108, but the 108 could have left more room on the outside of the track. Both drivers partially at fault. And lastly for now, incident lap 4 turn 13 involving the 38 and the 15. We did see it earlier of Malho and the Barlas Esports car of Polochok. Of course, no further action, a bump draft at the straights. So Stewie was right in what he was telling us. We're certainly getting some NASCAR bump drafting going on here at Misano, something I never thought I would say ever in my casting phase.
As long as we don't get any NASCAR Ross Chastain style wall rides, I think we'll be all right, John. Nothing wrong with a little bit of a bump draft. I'm surprised the stewards even looked into that, to be honest. But they doing their due diligence and checking out every bit of contact that there is picked up by the broadcasting tool. As we jump to Tom Shipston in the Ferrari on the back of Stevens in the 77 Mercedes. Just watch how that Mercedes is walking away in a straight line down the straight here. Surprised that he's not gaining on him with the slipstream, but obviously the Mercedes being a front engine car, you think Ferrari maybe get a bit better of an exit out of turn 10 with a little bit less understeer as we jump back to the battle of the long train involving Tudor Budu now having the attack on Chris Spence, who's asking how's the view. Well, Tudor Budu won't be looking at that view for very much longer as he is passed down into turn 14 of Cara and bang ahead into turn 15, so we'll have to see if the Beamer can get back at him maybe down the straights. Tudor's seeing some good pace after moving up from split 2, John.
Yeah, Tudor, of course, we saw him in the Super Trofeo final round upon the merging of the splits. Obviously came up from split 2, put it to some of the split 1 boys, to be fair, and had some great pace. So, of course, you can make your way up through the ranks of RCI. Of course, the only way you're going to get better is by driving with drivers faster than you and learning what they do and how they do it. And Tom Shipston is a great example of that. Silver British Master champion on that one, as we see Richard Whittle getting very close to the back of Spence in the purple Aztec racing car, and Whittle pulls out to the inside line, tries to take it side by side through turn 7 towards turn 8. We see a helicam here. Great view, last of the late breakers. Both cars very equally matched. Of course, the only difference here will be setup and some slight fuel load, and it looks like Richard Whittle has just about done enough to get the jump on him, although Spence still with his nose to the inside into turns 9 and 10, brakes very late for 10. ABS fighting him all the way to the apex, nearly ran into the door of Whittle, and they're still side by side now as we come down what is essentially the back straight of Misano. It looks like Spence just about with a good enough run on the inside. Of course, it's going to have the inside line for the next 3 turns, so it's definitely the place you want to be, and Whittle gives a wide berth around the kink, and of course Spence goes through, although looks like he runs a little bit wide, just covers off the inside into 14, although Whittle with a much tighter line going to get such a good run out of 14 into 15. Spence on the inside. Switcheroo again for Whittle. Looks to the inside into turn 16. This battle's been going on half a lap. Whittle slams on the brakes, goes slingshotting past Spence. I think he's just about made that stick, Callum.
Commentator's curse there, as I think Spence is going to try and cut back using the wider line into turn 1. He's going to be at it all over again for another lap. No, I think, as you said, Whittle might have actually made that stick finally in the number 14 car as we cut back to Polovchuk having a go at Pedro Marquez. That long pit stop, you can see how much that hurt Polovchuk, because he's battling with a car that was in the wall in lap 1 for all these incidents. So wondering what happened for him there as we cut back to a replay there of Polovchuk sending it down the inside, a little bit ugly there, but his car's coming away unscathed. I think Polovchuk probably held his hands up. He's made sure Marquez has gone back ahead. Flashed the lights there from Marquez's car. I don't know if he's trying to distract somebody in front of him as we jump on board with the Porsche. Yeah, he's stuck behind the Porsche of Les Stevenson, who's in that lovely Michael Fassbender Endurance Championship livery that I like so much. And what to see here, he's going to be the last of the late breakers down into turn 8, or might not wait till turn 8 as Polovchuk's trying to stick it up the inside of turn 4 and 5, coming through turn 6 now onto the back straight of that weirdly includes turn 7 on the track map for this circuit, even though it's not even a bend in my opinion. Last of the late breakers down into turn 8, trying to hang it around the outside here. It's going to be really difficult in the Porsche with that rear engine, that pendulum effect really trying to swing him around though. Oh, there's a little bit of wheel banging there as they come up to the hairpin at the top of turn 9 and turn 10. Sending it down the inside there, Polovchuk. Going to try and get the cutback is Marquez, and I believe he's got that. Going to have the better exit down the straight here though, but the Porsche is going to have more of a slipstream effect because of that gap now that Les Stevenson has been able to pull out of nearly a second to these guys. But nothing doing for the Porsche in a straight line here. That Lamborghini V10 really pulling it far, far away and out of trouble, as I say. That is Polovchuk dives down the inside again. Another commentator's curse here. He's really trying it down the inside of Marquez. It sort of shoves him out wide there. I don't know if there was a little bit of door-to-door contact between the two of them, but finally getting the move done ahead of Marquez. Going to go chase down Les Stevenson now.
Yeah, I think Stewart's certainly going to be looking into that one. Marquez, a flash of the lights in the rearview mirror to show his disgruntlement at Polovchuk, but I believe that was all in fair jest, as Polovchuk found it very hard indeed to cut himself back off of the curb of turn 8. Marquez gave him absolutely no room, almost drove him into the grass, forcing a very late dive into 9 and 10, but Stewards certainly are going to be looking at that one, I would say. And of course, quick message from our partners. We're going to get in here quickly with AK Esports, of course, a leading Italian company in esports management and organization around the world. Of course, helping us here with our wonderful servers at RCI. Everybody, of course, loves to race on. And if you believe they can help you at all, head on over to their website with a link in the description below. As we now watch Matt Stevens still fending off Tom Shipston, a battle of the Brits. We saw a good chunk of the Brits at the kind of top end of the field. So the Andy Boardman being one of them here, and Matt Stevens and Tom Shipston being the other two. So two very different cars as Polovchuk now looks to dispatch of Les Stevenson. Les Stevenson, of course, on the outside in the kind of proton-coloured green car from WEC, and the Barless Esports car making that very easy indeed. I think Les, knowing the true pace of these Barless boys, probably not wanting to fight him too hard, doesn't want to impact his race all too much, as of course he has Stefan Berner just behind him, who I think they are fairly similar in pace. And when we have a quiet spell, commentator's curse, touch wood, I'm going to try and go through this week's calendar at RCI. Of course, Tuesday is now our empty slot due to the iRacing Championship finishing. Ryan Ware took GT4 Pro Honours, Timo Ranikari GT4 AM, Richard Phillips, obviously RPMS MX5 Cup Pro Champion, and Alan Serafini Denasi won MX5 Cup AM. Wednesday this week, of course, begins our new championship with a team format, with round 1, of course, kicking off at Kyalami, with 5 rounds await the drivers, with an 80-minute format traditionally split between 2 of you. However, we are allowing solo sign-ups as well. So if you are looking to take part in a team event that's quite quick-firing round, then of course Wednesday will be the night for you. Thursday continues our Season 12 Championship with a British GT theme. GT3 and GT4 tour the British GT calendar, heading to Alton Park next. Snetterton last time, not to toot my own trumpet, was won by myself with Grim Lilith in second and Andy Boardman in third. GT4 was won by Harry Conway with Will Stevenson in second and John Aracer third in class. GT3 is ironically being led jointly by myself and Andy Boardman, who is of course racing here tonight, with Harry Conway leading John Aracer in GT4. And Friday this week, of course, we have an empty slot. And this weekend is the busy one. As we said earlier on in the broadcast, Saturday, we have, of course, the RCI Esports Challenge kicking off, of course, with the free event taking place. No entry fee, no prize pool. However, the series will mimic the kind of format set out by the 6-hour paid event, of course, with the limited tyre sets. But, however, BOP will be as set by Kunos, as we see Pedro Marquez still sizing up a move on Les Stevenson. Les definitely holding his own against that Lamborghini, not giving up as easy as you see the flash of the lights from Pedro Marquez on the rear bumper of Les. And Les is just looking forward. He's not, he's not trying to defend, but Pedro's just not that close to allow him to get through without losing a mad amount of time. So Saturday day, of course, the 6-hour Esports Challenge series kicks off. And then Saturday Night Owl, of course, heads to Barcelona for round 4. Timothy Flamger leads GT3 Pro overall from Joe Dorber, and Dario Balzaghi, who need ahead, is of course another Barlas Esports driver. And GT3 Silver is led by Alexander Orlix from Michel Molteni and Abel dos Ramos in third. And of course, on Sunday begins the paid leg of the Esports 6-hour challenge with 49 teams separated by less than 0.453 seconds. In qualifying with 5 rounds, 49 teams, a limited tyre set, and a custom BOP, and of course a forecasted 5-figure €11,000 prize pool. The series aims, of course, to showcase the absolute best of what sim racing has to offer on Assetto Corsa Competizione, with of course some great names in the qualifying board of SMP Racing, Williams Esports. Got Malinowski and Boothby competing against them with Yas Heat. Got Williams Esports, ITB Esports, FFS Racing, Legion of Racers, Azatec Visceral Esports, Ren Velton, Race Anywhere, John Lacey Esports, West Competition Racing, Ramat Racing Esports, Connection Lost Racing, Armamentario, Nearly on Pace, and Veloce, and Viper Esports just making the cut in the last couple of places. And we see Povlachok now on the back of Callum Spence, I believe. On this one, how's the view? I think Povlachok says not too bad. I'm not going to be enjoying it much longer, as I think Spence lifted off massively there to allow the Barlas Esports car through. And of course, sometimes there's just no point fighting a fight that you're never ever going to survive. And all the meanwhile, Pedro Marquez still looms in the back while the Porsche just drives away lap by lap by lap. And of course, if you want to drive away, one of our partners may be able to help you with that one. Driver61.com. You could, of course, get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code in the description below. From one-on-one coaching to full driving courses, the folks over at Driver61 will sure have something that fits your need. They've helped thousands hone their skills and discover some unknown potential. So be sure to check them out if they can help you at all. But back to tonight, the Barlas Esports car of Pozniakov still remains in P4, Callum. A little bit stale at the front of the field almost. We've got Kolok kind of driving away now, 7.2 seconds to the good from Malho, and then Boardman is even further down, another 6 seconds on Malho, and Pozniakov just a second behind Boardman. So the R8s once again proving to be, the car of choice in this championship. It was an absolute domination at Barcelona, and it's dominating here with still just over half an hour to go.
Yeah, all the R8s seeming to be at the front of the field as well, with 7th place being occupied by an R8. And yeah, as we said, Porsches here look decent as well. You've got 2 in the top 6 of Pozniakov and Dorber, as we still look at this battle in 8th place versus the Mercedes of Matt Stevens, battling the first of the Ferraris in Tom Shipston. And as you say, that Pozniakov actually in the pit lane, so hopefully a better stop for him than his compatriot in the Porsche earlier. Still don't quite know what happened to him in that pit stop, as we see Tom Shipston for Ground Zero Racing as well pulling in the Ferrari. So a lot of these guys trying to pit halfway through. Still, as we said, cold track, cold air temperatures, very little wind, so these cars aren't going to be struggling on tyres. I imagine, as you said, it's just going to be a 1 litre of fuel stop so the minimum amount of time possible for them.
Yeah, of course, you don't want to be hanging around in pit lane if you certainly don't need to. Of course, every second spent on the pit lane is a second you're not spending on track, turning a very fast time. And Richard Whittle now, excuse me, onto the back of Tudor Budu as they come around turn 6 onto the back straight. We saw the Porsche struggling down here earlier on in the hands of another driver, but Whittle doesn't look like he's closing all too much compared to Rudy Philmolter's car. And as he looks to the outside in 8, nothing to be had there. But Pozniakov is coming out of the pit lane now on his mandatory stop. Comes out in P14. Look at that, Chris Downing, 2.5 seconds to the good. We know Downing behind, just out of shot there, as you see in the background. Downing was the first car off pit lane very early on when the mandatory stop window opened. We see a little wiggle there from Pozniakov, and now he's only got drivers ahead that have to pit. And if we look at Pozniakov being, of course, number 86, look where he is on the map. He's just beginning the kind of back straight on the left-hand side of your screen. Next car, the 197 of Daly, is way up the road. So Pozniakov now with some clear air to really slap some laps through that Porsche and try and get himself more and more forwards. Very dominant qualifying in Barcelona, had a rotten race. They has certainly flipped it on its head here. Touch wood for the commentator's curse, because we know how this always goes, Callum.
Yeah, we always manage to end up cursing at least a couple of drivers every weekend. I don't know why they still invite us both back to do this. I'm sure they'll revolt at some point. But yeah, Pozniakov, first of those guys that all stopped, including Downing, Nico Kumpu, Tom Shipston, Malovchuk, Chris Spence, Marquez, Les Stevenson, Berner, and Roscam at the minute on the, as we can see on the timing boards. Still these guys lapping around. Hugo Galop with the fastest lap of the race up in front. I don't think he's going to be too worried about anyone undercutting him, so it's just going to be about finding a good point to stop as we jump to him now, for him to make a pit stop and not come out in too much traffic. Hopefully people would recognise his pace and get out of the way. I assume a lot of these guys are just playing it sensible, as blue flags here as he's coming up behind the yellow and black Porsche. I don't know who's let him out of the way here. Very sensible. Really nice to see the guys respecting the blue flags.
Yeah, the Race Esports team, of course, ushering Stefan Berner, that is in the yellow and black Porsche, behind, of course, a driver that we didn't see too much at round 1. I believe started from the back of the grid, didn't have a great start, and then called it a day quite early on, so possibly why we are not recalling that car at all, as Pedro Marquez now finds himself on the back of Callum Spence. We saw, what, 2 or 3 laps ago now, the car ahead, Pavlychuk, get past Spence. Made it very easy indeed, practically let him go down the start-finish straight. So I'm wondering if there's a little bit of purple-friendly kind of I help you, you help me going on here, where if you squint hard enough at Spencer's car, it might look like a Barless Esports car, but Pedro Marquez sending it up the inside into turn 10. Spence going to turn in and then seeing the nose of a Lamborghini behind him, and all of a sudden thinking, maybe not. And a flash of the hazards there from Marquez to say, thank you very much indeed for not making that too hard, although I don't think Charlie Spence, sorry, not Callum Spence. I don't know where I get Callum from. Charlie Spence, of course, almost giving way, but I don't think he was intentionally doing it. I think he just kind of braked a bit too hard. ABS kicked in and just didn't allow him the turn in that he was expecting. As now we see Pedro Marquez driving away from Charlie Spence on that one on the 273. And we're still back to the battle here with Whittle and Budu. Still hasn't raised its head yet, and 2 drivers still locked together, both to make a pit stop. And we know how many battles can be won on pit lane, Callum. You said earlier, of course, if you get your stop that little bit wrong, it can be very detrimental indeed to the kind of time that you might lose on your rival.
Yeah, obviously, with the way the ACC system works, if you cut your engine at the perfect time, stop on the perfect marks, you will get a much faster pit stop. So these guys are going to be wanting to do everything in their power to make that happen, as we see Whittle actually run wide out in the top of the circuit there, down into turn 14. So that's going to hurt his time there a little bit. Going to take a little bit more to catch up to the back of Tudor Budu in the 624 Porsche there, as we see he's pulled out a gap of at least probably a second there to the BMW behind him there, but I'm sure Richard Whittle will be chomping at the bit to try and get that that time back. Yeah, 1.3 seconds he lost due to that little excursion on the outside. Very easy to make that sort of mistake here at Misano. Quite a lot of shallow entry into tightening corners. You think turn 9, turn 10, turn 13 and 14. a lot of corners like that where you have quite a shallow little kink on the entry, but it tightens up, so quite easy to run wide, and that will leave you on the outside for all of that corner. Looking back up to the instant earlier of the overtake with Pedro Marquez, I don't think the car on the outside expected him to even be there of Spence. I think he just sort of looked into his right hand mirror, and there was suddenly a Lamborghini alongside of him. So very, very aggressive move from Pedro there. As we cut to Marlo, who again one of the 3 Audis at the front of this field here, trying to chase down Kalot though, but quite a gap ahead of him as we see Kalot just going through turn 3 now. So Marlo 8.5 seconds back, but driving a great race for himself and Team STR in the yellow, white and black Lamborghini. It's a hard point in this race now that I feel like for a lot of these drivers where they just sort of have to keep going around at their pace and just see where these pit stops land out. They've got to keep pushing because people like Polsiakov and Downing and Nico Kumpu, who have already stopped, are going to be threatening to undercut them if they're not too careful. So they've got to keep pushing until they make their pit stop. Obviously 24 minutes just now left for these guys to stop. 26 minutes to go in the race.
Yeah, you've got a 2-minute grace period before the end of the race. If you think you can run that long on fuel, of course, drivers that take a heavier tank at the start will be much, much slower than those that kind of take, half a tank. A little bit more of a tank, but of course, with the 1 litre mandatory to be added, of course, the normal strat is to spend as less time on pit lane as you can. So don't take tyres, you take the minimal amount of fuel you need, and then you get back out there, log in around. And of course, a lot to be had here on the pit stops. We see, of course, a few drivers separated by less than a couple of seconds up and down the field. So all to be won on pit lane. And of course, Pozniakov is your man so far that is leading from his pit stop down in P14. First of the drivers on the road that has, of course, taken a stop. Came out ahead of Downing, who was first to pit. And Downing 1.7 seconds to the good behind him. But of course, all of the guys you see from P1 to P13 of Jordan Daly with the little orange number 1. Those of you that are viewing ACC for the first time and wonder what that is, orange number 1 is, of course, 1 mandatory stop to take, where they have to meet all the criteria for the board to then turn green, such as everybody in the bottom half of the table, P14 down to 23 of Roscam. And of course, another quick message from one of our partners, Fanatec, one of the leading brands in dedicated sim racing hardware, including force feedback wheels, direct drive units, pedals, load cells, and much, much more. You can, of course, find our affiliate link down below in the description if you are looking to pick up any hardware at all over the next year or so, and it won't cost you a single penny. But of course, it does help us here with the running costs at RCI, many of which of us are, of course, volunteers to keep those super low, offer you some super high production quality streams, and of course, put on some very high quality events. Of course, you can find the best of what ACC has to offer in sim racing. But something that isn't the best, as always, stewards' decisions. And we have a few more, Callum. So we have an incident on lap 11, turn 3, involving the 182 and the 15. We have a warning for the car 15 for avoidable contact. Incident on lap 12, turn 10, involving the 15 and the 182. No further action. And finally, an incident lap 12, turn 16, involving the 15 and the 182. Once again, no further contact. And of course, the 15 and the 182 are Pedro Marquez and Polovchok, 2 drivers that kind of took lumps out of each other. And we did say, Callum, the stewards would be looking into it. They looked into it, and I guess it was a kind of tit for tat. It was, you hit him, he hit you, you hit him. What do we care? Let's keep racing, keep it honest. Nobody spun out, nobody really lost a lot of time, and it provided us with some great pictures here at RCI TV, as I see Will Stevenson with a drive-through at the bottom, Callum.
Yeah, nothing through on the stewards yet, so that looks like it's could be a drive-through for track limits, which is a bit interesting. That as we see him stopped in the pit box, I don't quite know what's going on there. Yeah, I'm assuming it's just a drive-through for track limits, maybe running it too far out wide on some of these sweeping corners. Probably quite easy to get a track limits warning if you're not being careful, but yeah, very rare to see, especially in the top split, to see track limit drive-through. We don't usually get that from these guys. I don't think we got one in the Super Trofeos last season at all.
I think we kept it relatively clean from memory. Might have had one or two. Of course, drivers always looking to push the limits and see what they can do. And pushing the limits, this man here, Richard Whittle, has caught up to the back again of Tudor Budu in the Porsche. Ahead, Whittle pulls out to drive to the left. You just saw the Porsche on the right-hand side of Budu to the outside of turn 8. Whittle on the inside. Jordan Daly just behind these guys, of course, after his drive-through, looking to try and make up some places. And you see the great drive the Porsche has around the outside of turn 8, almost allows them to pull alongside towards turn 9 and 10. But I think Whittle has just about held on for this, as we see now Budu trying the old switcheroo to try and get a little bit of a better drive, and it does look like he's kind of maximized it a little bit, and tucks into the back of the M4 GT3 ahead as we come through the dogleg section of turn 11 before the kink of 12 and 13. Of course, two very tricky corners. They look very simple on the face of it. However, if you brake a little bit too wrong, flick the car a little bit too weird, it can really spit you out into the gravel trap on the outside. And all the meanwhile, Jordan Daly in the mirror behind there, top of your picture. You see him lurking in the Mercedes. And Andy Boardman is the first of your top three kind of to pit. Takes his litre of fuel, very quick stop indeed. Definitely on the mark, straight down and straight away. And pit exit line, unfortunately for Andy Boardman, is an eternity away. It's not where you think it is at the end of the lane. It's, of course, all the way down here. We turn around to the right, and then, of course, as the camera pans around, you see the green light there, which signifies off the pit limiter, and he's into the disqualification. Apparently, he sped into the pits, Callum. That's something I've not completely seen ever in Split 1, I don't think.
Speaking of things, yeah, we've not seen in Split 1. I don't think I've ever seen that in any of our races. A driver speeding into the pit lane and a straight disqualification. So I don't know how quick he's coming to the pits there, but as we cut to, I think it was a replay, but however, Stewie's maybe pressed the wrong button there. So a bit of a technical difficulty with the replay system. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anyone speed that much into the pit lane, John. And maybe you know what the limit is on somebody getting a straight disqualification, but it's usually a stop and go 30 as we cut back here, as we see, taking massive speed into the box there and just locking the brakes, I think. Just, in the 70s. And
I think I see what's happened. We rewind slightly. I believe the pit board was missing for the speed limiter. Normally there's a little cardboard board on the right-hand side. You come steaming around the corner, you look to the right, and you go, right, there's the limiter. I'm going to brake and catch it. And unfortunately, I believe that board has been taken out, of course, being on the right-hand side of a left-hand drive turn. And somebody comes in a little bit too fast. That is going straight down the pit lane. And, of course, ACC not re-rendering any boards until you reload the whole game. So, of course, if you're using any destructible track objects for your braking markers, maybe think again, as Tom Shipston now hassles the back of Gadster in the Ferrari. BMW on Ferrari action. We see the Ferrari much better drive out of the hairpin down towards turn 15 and now onwards to turn 16. I say Shipston not close enough yet, although speaking of close, Rudy Philwalter and Roskam now getting very close indeed. Two drivers, I think, friends within the RCI Discord community. We always kind of see Carlos, Les, Philwalter, Roskam, kind of all together normally in one team. And we have Philwalter on the inside in the Flying Lizard Porsche. Looks like that BMW has got great legs down the straight, although Philwalter with the inside. Roskam tries to mount a defense around the outside, but of course not the line you want to be on through these fast corners. You want to be as close to that apex as you can get it to maximize all of your speed through. And Philwalter showing there a textbook move on what to get done on the BMW. But BMW definitely has legs, Callum, as we said earlier. So this battle might not yet be over, and this could go to the end if Rudy doesn't, pardon the pun, but drop the hammer, as his team name suggests.
Oh dear, not just shilling, but puns as well. Jesus, we've onto this.
We have it all on RCI TV.
BMW and Porsche battles, as we see a Porsche on Porsche battle here involving Stefan Berner and Les Stevenson. As I can just see on the bottom of that ball as well, Andy Boardman might have had that negated down to a stop and go 30. I don't know if that's ACC being weird or whether the stewards have decided to speak kindly upon him due to that pit board being missing. But yeah, Stefan Berner here and Philwalter, Stefan Berner and Les Stevenson here battling away in the two Porsches here, both having made their stops already, looking down to see probably finish about maybe in the mid-pack, maybe once some of these guys ahead have made their stops. Obviously, all the way up to 9th place here of Pedanskov has made their stops now here, and Yeah, poor Andy Boardman. I can't get over that for him. He's running in the top 3 all race, and then has that happen to him on the pit stop, on the one pit stop he has to make. Runs in too hot. I don't believe he's got going again either, so I believe that is just ACC being ACC. Stop and go 30, either that or he's thrown the towel in, as I probably would as well. So something to bear in mind for all of these guys in the lead before they make their stops is that pit board is now missing. So they will have to be very, very, very careful when they come into pit lane. I won't be surprised if we don't see some more stop and go 30s, John, with some guys overcooking it slightly.
Yeah, either stop and go 30s or some drive-through penalties certainly to be had out if you're not aware that the pit board is missing. As you said, it's very easy to not realise where that line is, and it again once again proves why it's not important just to practice, of course, your laps, but of course to practice your pit in and pit out as well. I remember I started doing it after I lost an OVRC race to Mike Stoffmill, purely by pit stop. He was just so much better in, so much better out, and so much better on the marks. And since that day, I have vowed to always practice pit stops at every single circuit we try. So kind of come in a little bit too gingerly one time, you're like, right, you can brake a little bit later next time. You come in a little bit too hot next time, and all of a sudden you teleport to your pit box, and you soon find out where the limit is. So definitely one to bear in mind. You guys watching at home that, you know, are looking to take up big racing or possibly even endurance racing, as we know pit stops are very, very important there as well. And Cassiaro, one of the drivers we saw in the qualifying, not setting a time, looking towards the bottom of the field, and he is unfortunately sick tonight, terribly sick, and won't be making the race. He did try, but unfortunately could not do so tonight, although has told us he will be back in Hungary. So Cassiaro, we hope you feel better soon. Everybody here at RCI TV, and we hope to see you on the grid, of course, in the next round, which is at the Hungaroring, typically a track again that displays the perks of many different cars, the kind of more agile cars in the corners versus the cars that are a little bit better on corner exit, and then of course the cars that are great down the long run to turn 1. But Les Stevenson here still under pressure from Stefan Berner. Porsche on Porsche action. This kind of reminds us a little bit of the Super Trofeo race, Callum, where everybody's in the same car, and the only thing you can really differentiate is car setup between the two.
Yeah, these guys obviously both running in the Porsche. Porsche seems to be one of the most selected cars by the Formula 1 Championship. Not that many Audis, weirdly, even though it seems so dominant at these rounds. But maybe these guys playing ahead towards racetracks like the Hungaroring, where apart from, as you say, that first straight and after the hairpin, that big long second straight, these guys are going to look really good in that mid and last sector. Sorry, in the Porsches. Very, very quick car around the Hungaroring, I will imagine here. Struggling probably at Misano due to the very, very, very long back straight, but that doesn't matter when you're Porsche on Porsche. But speaking of another Porsche here, Palovchuk, obviously after pitting and having that long pit stop, still down in 15th place though, so trying to chase down that fellow Porsche and that Ballas Esport car of Pazatskov in the car 86 further up the road here, but he's got a couple of guys to make his way through first, starting with Matt Stevens, as we see it's correct there in another Porsche behind him. They've got some breathing room here, just going to try and pound in the laps for the next 14 minutes, see how many seconds he can make up here. So 6 seconds ahead to, 3.8 seconds ahead to Matt Stevens, who's then got another 6 seconds to Tom Shipston, who is currently battling with Paolo Gajda in the BMW. So some of these fights in the midfield are looking quite good, and obviously only going to be made better when these late pit stoppers come in from the lead and sort of drop themselves in throughout, as we cut to Tom Shipston in that Ferrari having a battle here with the BMW ahead of him. Of Gajda, still a little bit of a ways off here, just down the straight. That BMW going to be very, very good with once it gets up to its top speed. Obviously the turbo is not going to help it on corner exit here, with that Ferrari with the mid-engine probably being a bit better through the corners, a balance compared to that front engine BMW with that understeer here. See the cars pitching in through the last corner here, coming up towards the line. Probably going to be about 6/10 there, the gap there between Gajda and Shipston as they cross over the line. It's just going to keep battling around. Gajda there very narrow in through turn 3 there, cutting around through turn 4. coming down into now, and see if this Ferrari can make a move on the BMW ahead of him, as got about 12 minutes ahead left to do so.
Yeah, 12 minutes, just under 13 minutes. So yeah, 12 minutes and 40 seconds. As Tudor Budu now comes out of the pit lane, we saw him running together earlier on with Richard Whittle, who I believe is still yet to pit, P9 overall. Tudor Budu comes out just behind Marquez in the Lamborghini. So Marquez with another car dispatched. And all the meanwhile, I've not realized this, but the leaders have started lapping some of the field as well. So Kolot and Malho very, very quick indeed. And Joe Dorber now finds himself promoted up into P3 briefly before the pit stops, of course, cycle around. And Pozniakov, I believe, is the man you want to be watching, the number 86, currently in P8. As Richard Whittle comes down the lane, look like either side of the camera, there is no speeding board there at all. So probably why Andy Boardman unfortunately got caught out over that one. And of course, Richard Whittle comes down into pit lane to take his stop. Tudor Budu was the man battling with him. So Budu now finds himself around the back end of the dogleg. And as you see on the left-hand side, we're going to start seeing, hopefully, in a minute, Richard Whittle tumbling down the order, currently in P10. He's got Gadgster, Shipston, and Stevens to pass. And then we should see, in theory, there's Andy Boardman in P24, stop and go 30. I believe he's completely given up on that one now. Kolot is, of course, there. Whittle is there. P14. This is the one you want to be watching. Tudor Budu now in the 624, rounds the last turn. Richard Whittle still with the white P next to his name, of course, meaning that he is on pit lane. So as we ride on board with Tudor Budu round turn 1 and 2, you're going to be wanting to look to the left-hand side for a shadow of an M4 GT3 coming out the lane. And I think Whittle has done it by quite a considerable margin. It looks like about 8 seconds on Budu overall.
Yeah, he's really jumped some time there. I don't know what happened to Budu in that lap, but Whittle with a great stop, or maybe Budu with a slow stop in pit lane. But yeah, I was watching, as you said, he was still in pit lane, but he was near the exit board already while Budu was only just coming out of the final corner there. So work to do for Budu with Whittle being ahead of Marquez even. So yeah, nearly 10 seconds there. Whittle's gaining those pit stops, as we see Shipston and Gazza still going at it. 3/10 down the gap between the Ferrari and the BMW. Going to see when these guys sort of filter out with into that rear view, seeing that orange and silver and black Ferrari of Tom Shipston. I know you were disappointed when you thought there was no silver on that car, John, on the first round, but here we go. It's just on the left side, all being hidden from the cameras when we're on the grid of that first race. That Ferrari and that Beamer seem quite well matched in a straight line, though. It doesn't seem like he's gaining too much in the slipstream, John.
Yeah, of course, both turbo cars, Ferrari and the BMW, so kind of, both equal in kind of engine performance. Let's say there's no NA advantage where, you nail the throttle and you have all that power available. Of course, turbos have to spool up, have to feed a bit of air through them before they get to their full potential. It looks like in the slower corners, the Ferrari, certainly the more agile car of the two. I said earlier, the M4 got its bot by a slight weight increase on most circuits, so becomes a bit of a handful through the twisties, although down the straight, of course, the power is enough to haul it along. And Stefan Berner and Les Stevenson still going at each other. No position to be changed here at the moment, although Berner looks much, much closer in these last few laps than Stevenson has. Just over, should I say, sorry, 9 minutes to go. So we're looking at about 3-ish laps in total. Pit window still open for 7.5 minutes. So any drivers still have plenty of time to come along the line, including Kolot, Malho, Dorber, Dixon Chen, Kingston Lee, a racer, and of course, Pozniakov is your first driver on the road who has taken a pit stop. So you're going to have to keep an eye on the left side of the board to see how he climbs and to see where your top 6 filter into the grid below. And another message from one of our partners, a new partner some of you may be very interested to see. digitalmotorsports.com of course offers a number of products and services, from virtual racing experiences to corporate days, early drive program, and much more. And they do of course have a simulator shop where they do sell said components, of course any SimRig solutions that you may be looking for as well. Founded in 2018 by 2 enthusiastic motorsport fans, had a vision to create Ireland's leading digital motorsport environment and resource. Of course, check out the description for a link if you feel they can help you out at all. And of course, who are in their target market of Ireland or overseas from the mainland of Britain, of course, they may be able to help with your sim racing needs without the costly shipping that goes with coming from Europe from most suppliers. But Tom Shipston still looking at the back of Gajda. It just seems that Ferrari and BMW, as you said, Callum, they're just too evenly matched. You just can't really put anything between them as the sun comes back out here at Misano, peeked from behind the clouds. Of course, pictures now looking slightly brighter. And as you said, the color scheme of that Ferrari did confuse me a lot. As Andre Dixon Chen comes down pit lane in the 64 Audi for... I'm trying to read that. It looks like distinct.gg, but it's not spelt the traditional way I was expecting, so it really confused me. Of course, another Audi R8 on the grid with a strong performance. We see a little shuffle from the pit box there. I believe maybe just missed his mark as he drops down off the jacks, and away he goes, currently down into P8, and we should see him slipping even further down. I believe John Aracer, we just saw inside the picture there in the 699, coming down pit lane as well to take his mandatory stop. Colot still yet to come down, although 10 seconds to the good. He might find his way down in the next couple of minutes or so. And one thing you don't want to do, Callum, is forget to take your mandatory stop. We have had that in a few series before. Drivers not realised and have just driven around for the whole hour. Completely forgot.
I'd hate to be that guy, but I don't think Colot is going to have that problem. I think he's very much on his. I hope he's very much got it on his mind as we see John Aracer exit the pits. But who knows? Commentator's curse has been hitting hard and very, very harshly tonight. So we never know. We might see Colot forget that he has to do a pit stop in an RCI endurance race. Hopefully not. Hopefully that Audi was into pit lane within the next 4 minutes and 38 seconds. I believe he might stop at the end of this lap or the next as we look to see Tom Shipston battling with, is that the beamer of Gajda again still? So these guys have come out nose to tail. 310 still as they battle for now P8, these guys battling for. Both obviously made their stops. Might gain a few positions maybe from Joe Dorber and Kingston Lee pitting. Obviously don't think they're going to be looking to battle with Marlow and Colot after they've pitted. Obviously, I think Wozniak was going to be the guy trying to battle those ones, but Tom Shipston still trying to find a way past that BMW.
Literally can't find a way at all. As Shipston, of course, silver British Masters champion, is no, kind of stranger to pressure. He's no stranger to taking it to some of the pro guys in Split 1 when he was challenging for the title, and of course a driver very competitive indeed for the Ground Zero Racing number 60 Ferrari, as Gajda kind of looks to take a defensive line, then realizes maybe not, maybe he's not close enough. But definitely the Ferrari looking a lot better in the slower corners. We said it earlier, Callum, through turns 4 and 5. Shipston certainly looks to be kind of, edging closer, should we say, to the back of the BMW, and we see it here right under the rear wing of that M4 GT3 as they take all the curb around Misano. Of course, a motorcycle track designed with very flat curbs to meet approval in the motorcycle racing world. But it does mean, of course, these GT cars can really abuse the track limits. And now Gajda goes on the defense into turn 8, takes the inside line. Shipston flicks to the outside to try and do the old up and under, and Gajda's overcooked it in turn 8, and this allows Tom Shipston through, and it's enough of a gap that I don't think he's going to have to go defensive as we watch a race replay. Just from the end move there, Gajda looks like he braked too late, ran himself up the banking almost of turn 8, and it just allowed Tom Shipston through on that much tighter line. Shipston now coming under fire though from Gajda as we cut back side by side down the straight. Shipston with a flash of the lights, definitely disgruntled about something. I didn't even think Gajda was close enough to make a move into 9 and 10, so keep an eye on the stewards' reports to see if anything has happened here, as Gajda very wide somehow in turn 10 ahead of Shipston. Shipston alongside, and the BMW just seems to have the legs from taking that much wider line. So not sure what happened there, but we shall keep an eye on the stewards' reports, of course, for cars 60 and 924 to see if anything happened there. But yeah, not sure what happened there. It looked like the move was sealed by Shipston. He was way ahead on the exit of 8, and then on the exit of 10, 2 corners later, Gajda's back ahead.
Yeah, maybe Shipston having to avoid Gajda. Stewie coming in, chat with his guess of Gajda braking way too late and Shipston having to avoid, but we'll have to see as we see Hugo Colot in pit lane here. So Marlow takes the race lead away from Colot, still having to make his stop. He's only got 1 minute and 41 seconds to make that stop, so he'll be in pit lane. Looks like a perfect stop for Colot there, not having to move too much around on the jacks, and he moves along towards the pit limit line, so it doesn't look like there's any penalties being applied. We'll see when he gets to the exit of pit lane. It's a long old wait here, but I think he's going to be very far clear of the next car of Pozniakov as he comes down now to the exit, as he can turn the pit limiter off. And yeah, it's still got quite a little ways to go to Pozniakov and Joe Dorber even still behind, so he still maintains second place here. So yeah, as Joe Dorber, sorry, in the pit lane, as well as Kingston Lee here. So I think Marlowe is the only car who isn't in the pits, John.
Yeah, Marlowe cutting it very fine indeed on his mandatory stop. 25 seconds to the good on Kolot, who has, of course, made his pit stop. And okay, had a slight bit of traffic for Marlowe. Hopefully won't send him too much into the pit lane, as we see Joe Dorber and Matthew Kingston Lee now moving from their spots. Let's see where they come out. We've got Gajda, Shipston behind. We've got Dixon Chen, who was ahead again on road position. Matt Stevens might just about not make it, but they are going to lose a few positions, I reckon. Or Joe Dorber, don't believe so, actually comes out in P6. Matthew Kingston Lee off the limiter in P7. Look to your left-hand side of your screen. There's nobody coming at all. So Kingston Lee and Dorber keep the position ahead of Gajda and Shipston. Dixon Chen on the back of that train, not too far behind them at all. So just over a minute 30 to go as Malho now comes down the lane as it closes. Of course, you've got to be over the speed limiter line when the clock hits, or before, sorry, the clock hits 0. And Pozniakov, of course, is your man on the road that we were watching for the majority of the race to see where he came out. Of course, Chris Downing, one of the early pit stoppers, is now in P4. And Malho now gets going past the yellow lights under the concrete bridge, and it's going to feel like an eternity towards pit exit. As we see the white P, we see Kolot 15 seconds to the good on the left-hand side. Of course, that will update, of course, when he does come through. And according to that, Kolot has already made his way through and is very far ahead indeed. 13 seconds, roughly 14 to the good as the live deltas begin to update. But Pozniakov 20 seconds behind, and Shipston and Gajda still going at it. This has been going on 20 odd minutes, I think, Callum. Shipston's going to be, mega frustrated. He just can't find a way past this BMW.
Yeah, and no sign from the live penalties either for Gazda's done anything wrong. So Shipston feints to the inside to try and get him off his line. But Gazda not moving in that BMW, and you've even got Dixon Chen in the background in that Audi trying to get involved as well in this. They get a three-way fight for 8th place, but maybe that flash of the lights was just to let him know that he was still there on the inside. Coming to think, it's obviously some drivers might not notice, didn't want to have the door closed on him and ruin the race for both of them. But Gazda very aware, as we see Polovchuk on the back of Stevens, so he's taken that 14 minutes, as I mentioned earlier, and he is already on the back of Stevens now in the last lap of the race now. So as I believe Kolot comes across the line, it will start the last lap. So these guys have another lap and a half to go. As maybe
I think this is the checkup. Yeah, checkup for Kolot.
So it's cut the checker already for Kolot. Sometimes it keeps the race going on for another lap if they're close to the exit line. So, but Hugo Kolot has won the race there, very close to the line as that white flag was shown. And now Marlowe in P2 crosses the line, and Pozniakov will get P3, I imagine, ahead of Downing. Very good race by Chris Downing to come back from that pit stop. So these guys have just got a few corners now to make moves stick. Tom Shipston's going to try something into the last hairpin there. Runs quite wide, maybe runs a little bit onto the curb there, so going to try and get the best run possible out of this hairpin there. He's got the inside just showing the nose there. Gazda, it's going to have to be something late or some drag up to the line now for Tom Shipston to make a move on the Ground Zero racing car. As we look back to Polovchuk trying to make a move on Stevens. He's got the inside line for the final corner. He's going to send it up the inside. Don't run out too far wide. Don't run too far wide onto the rumble strips on the outside. And Stevens will lose out to Polovchuk there. And Shipston has lost out to Gajda, who finishes in 8th place as well.
Yeah, John Eraser coming across the line. 699 taking P13, unlucky for some. Coiret takes 14, Whittle 15th. Pedro Marquez, a rotten race after the lap 1 incident, just hasn't managed to come back. Caught a lot of traffic along the way, rounds into P16. Tudor Budu, P17, lost a good position or two from Richard Withall, who was quite close. Charlie Spence, the 273, the only Scottish driver now after Joshua Allen retired from the event. And Les Stevenson, your last car, although not last in P19, comes across the line. And on your screen now is the final results, of course, pending any stewards' inquiries that may raise after the race. Of course, Audi dominance once again, 1 and 2, Kolot and Malho on that one. Pozniakov, your top Porsche, Downing, your top BMW, and Nico Kumpu, your top Ferrari driver. So, top 5, you've got, what, 4 different manufacturers in there? It's, anybody's to play for. 4 very different cars on that one as well. And once again, a great run from Hugo Collard as we look down the board towards the bottom end. Of course, Roskam managed to beat Hauser, who I believe, Hauser was your last of your finishers. Andy Boardman, of course, with the disqualification, turned from stop go 30, but called it a day. Confirmed in the RCI Discord, of course, that the pit board was missing when he came round, which is why he didn't quite know where he was meant to be braking. And that kind of rounds out your round 2 at Misano. And it's been another great round, Callum. Qualifying was, quite spread out, although the race did, had to have some big movers and some shakers. We saw the Barlas Esports car of Polovchok go backwards a little bit. Pozniakov managed to keep his own and claim the bottom step of the podium. And Chris Downing took home a sizable chunk of points along with Nico Kumpu, P4 and 5. So championship still all to play for, I would say, in this one.
Yeah, plenty of rounds left and plenty of points left. Actually, just getting some more stuff coming through in the Discord from Polovchuk. He forgot to add fuel before the race, so he started the race with 17 litres of fuel, hence the extended pit stop. And everybody in the Split 1 chat very mad at whoever knocked over the pit entry sign. I think we're going to have to enforce massive ballast penalties to whoever decides to do that at any future event because it caused chaos tonight. But yeah, Nico Kumpu with a very quiet race. Didn't really see much of him at all, but managing to get up to, I believe, P5 from what I remember you saying. But yeah, really good races. Characterized by these early pit stops we haven't really seen before in the first round.
Yeah, certainly. So normally we see a lot of late stoppers essentially in the Monday Championships. You don't often see a lot of the early stoppers, shall we say? But certainly worked for some of them today. Chris Downing being one of them, first down pit lane, first out of pit lane for whatever reason, decided to take it quite early on. And if the replay is going to catch it, we're probably going to see why Pedro Marquez went backwards at the start. Jordan Daly behind in the Mercedes. Marquez round to the outside, and then before you know it, down to driver's right. Will Stevenson collects the wall behind as well with a heavy lick. Didn't really catch that one, particularly what happened to Will there. But of course, we do digress nonetheless. And another message from one of our last partners who we haven't mentioned tonight, of course, Go Setups, formed to be one of the premium esports setup stores for ACC. Their primary aim to create setups for all skill levels, whether you're esports ready or looking for a safer alternative. Of course, check out their link in the description box below. And for those of you that are a bit of a meme machiner, you can get a setup pack for the Jaguar. And I'm still yet to purchase, and I would like to purchase and see if you can be competitive at LFM in a Jaguar. Because I feel that'd be a little bit of a giggle. And of course, down below, you can check out all of our social media links, including Discord, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where you can find out the all exciting stuff that goes on behind the scenes at RCI, such as our esports team following, who are regularly competing in events over the weekends. And speaking of events over the weekends, of course, I keep harping on about it, but the esports 6-hour challenge is beginning on Saturday with the free event to race, and of course the Sunday will be brought to you here on RCI TV from Jesse Lee, who will be your opening commentator. 3 hours through, me and Jesse will switch, and you'll get me along with Callum Kerwin, Kevin Boss, and Les Stevenson on my talent lineup, I believe, for the weekend. So super excited to share the box with those guys. Super excited to see some close esports racing, 0.453 seconds between the top 49 teams, with some massive names such as SMP, Williams, Malinowski and Boothby, Yas Heat, you name them, they're there. Ren Velton, Azatec, Visceral Esports. It's going to be a jam-packed talent lineup this weekend on Sunday, so be sure to check out RCI TV then. Of course, this wouldn't be possible without anyone watching at home, so kudos to you if you are still here listening to me ramble on. It is much appreciated. And of course, we do these purely for the entertainment value itself. So I'm going to say my farewells for tonight. So from myself, John Dalton, from briefly Jesse Lee at the beginning of the broadcast, to Callum Kerwin halfway through on the race start, to Stewie behind the cameras, and of course all of our stewards in the stewards box tonight, we bid you farewell. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we hope to see you for the big one on Sunday here at RCI TV. Take care of yourselves.